everyone. Welcome to the fourth episode of Climate Voyage podcast series, where we talk about the link between climate change and biodiversity. I'm Rasara Nandasena, and this podcast is conducted aligning with British Council Youth Climate Ambassador Program 2023. Our main collaborators are British Council Sri Lanka, Global Youth Biodiversity Network Sri Lankan Chapter, and Earth Lanka. Today's episode is about climate change and mangrove ecosystems. The guest speaker of today's episode is Professor Sunanda Kodikara. Professor Sunanda Kodikara is a professor at Department of Botany, University of Ruhuna. His expertise lies in the fields of ecophysiology, plant ecology, and ecosystem ecology. He has years of research experience related to mangroves, where he had made significant contributions. Join me in welcoming Professor Sunanda Kodikara. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Rasala, and thank you very much for inviting me to have this kind of a discourse about climate change and mangroves. Yeah.
So it's nice to have you here with us today, sir. So let's dive in. So to initiate the discussion, can you provide an overview on what mangroves are and their significance to coastal ecosystems?
Yes, Rasara. I think that many of us might have heard about mangroves. Probably there can be some people that who do not listen, they hear about mangroves. But basically, you know that Sri Lanka as an island, we are having a very good coastal region. So in coastal region, there are different ecosystems like sand dunes, mangroves, that beach vegetation, and there are many other ecosystems resided on the beach, resided on the coastal region. So among them, mangroves means that is the only tidal forest. Probably people might have heard about the different forest types, but this is the only tidal forest that you can find in any country. The tidal forest means that always these ecosystems are subjected to sea water waves. I would say that it is normally subjected to always the waves. The effect of waves is there. So therefore, with simple words, I would say that the mangroves are the only tidal forest that you can find on the coast. So that is how I can introduce the mangroves. Apart from that, people should know that the mangrove ecosystems are too extreme. The conditions are too extremes. They are having very harsh conditions, like always these ecosystems are underwater for a certain period of time. And at the same time, the soil is too boggy. You cannot even go into mangroves and do some works. At the same time, the temperature is too high and oxygen level is very low. So that's why we are having a very less number of species. We are having only 21 mangrove species, right? And so these are the basic points I just want to share with you. Yeah.
Thank you for the explanation, sir. So let's direct our discussion to our main topic, which is climate change. So can you explain how mangroves are affected by climate change, and what is the role do they have in mitigating climate change?
Yeah, actually, an answer to the first question probably that you asked about the importance of mangroves. So under importance, that I would say that there are certain and a very profound advantages are there. For instance, those ecosystems are acting as coastal protectors. I think the well-known scenario is the tsunami that hit Southeast Asia in 2004. After the tsunami, that's normally there was a big discourse about mangroves, the ability of mangroves to mitigate the effect of tsunami. That is the basic story where mangroves have received much attention, right? So later on, now the hot topic is the climate change and mangroves. Therefore, I just want to convey the message that how climate change and mangroves are interconnected. So when asked into that question, you know that the climate change, when you're talking about climate change, there are different events, different scenarios come under climate change. You all know that sea level rise, global warming, ocean acidification, extreme weather conditions are the most hot topics that we are just having some discussions on. That under that one, global warming is one of the top scenarios. The reason is that normally have led already to make a lot of impacts on the system. So when you're talking about the global warming, the main cause for global warming is releasing greenhouse gases. So I think I don't need to give more details about the greenhouse gases. Most of us know that the carbon dioxide is the main contributor for greenhouse gases, and that ultimately normally causing to make a lot of effects. But mangroves, they are having a specialty or special ability to absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. It means that they are cleaning the atmosphere by absorbing carbon dioxide. But the specialty normally goes further on. I mean, it's like that carbon dioxide is absorbed by mangroves, and normally they can keep these mangroves inside soil for a longer period. I think that is the most important point. When it comes to some of the other ecosystems, they also do the same thing. They are normally absorbing carbon dioxide, but they cannot retain it or keep carbon dioxide for a longer period. In science, we call it as turnover rate. Turnover rate is really low in other ecosystems as compared to mangroves. But mangroves, they can normally absorb and keep carbon dioxide for a longer period. Then, therefore, we used to call it as carbon stocks. A lot of carbon stocks you can find in mangroves. Therefore, people started to now to investigate different means and ways through which they can manage mangroves, conserve mangroves, and ultimately get some of the benefits in terms of climate change mitigation. So this is the story. And I just want to add one new term. We call it as blue carbon. Now blue carbon means sort of a marketing that carbon is there, and we are giving a special name to the carbon that you can find in mangroves. We call them as blue carbon. That's why the climate change in that context, now people started to talk about blue carbon. That's why the mangrove normally comes and play in a major role in that context. So this is the story basically. Yeah.
Thank you for the input, sir. You have recently conducted a research on climate and intertidal zonation drive variability in the carbon stocks of Sri Lankan mangrove forest. So can you provide your input on how does climate and intertidal zonation influence the variability in carbon stocks in Sri Lankan mangrove ecosystem?
Yes, Rosara, that's a very good question. The thing is that in broad sense, we know that the mangrove ecosystems are very good at storing carbon. But again, if you go for more details, then you can find that there is a very clear spatial distribution of different patterns in storing carbon. It's obviously. And the main factors that if you take a look on the factors that are underlying to have that kind of variability are species composition. Means that you know that when you're talking about mangroves, the main driver is salinity. Salinity means the level of sodium chloride in water, right? Then you know that because of the tidal effect, the salinity is not normally monotonic throughout the ecosystems. You can find a very profound or sometimes very conspicuous gradient is there. Due to that gradient, some of the species, they like to establish under low saline conditions. Some of the species, they like to get moderate saline conditions, and some species are very high saline conditions, right? So under that conditions, if you take a look from waterward side, means the lagoon side, to the landward side, there is a clear gradient. So when you are having that kind of a gradient, you can find different vegetation, different assemblages, means that different species come together to form different patches. Then obviously, scientifically, you all can understand that these different species are having different capacities of storing carbon because it's all about their physiology. That means that how much carbon they need to keep their process vital. So that is the basic point. So depending on that point, some species can store more carbon, while some species can, that they normally get a very low amount of carbon. That is called carbon budget. So according to that, if you go from lagoon bird side to land bird side, uh, I think before that, I just want to give you a little overview about intertidal zone. The intertidal zone means, I think it's really important to know that what is intertidal zone. Intertidal zone means the area that is occupied by mangroves, means the low water level and high water level. If you take the tidal variation, the very lowest value and the highest value, and the area in between is called as intertidal zone. So that is the only area where we can find mangroves, right? So normally you cannot find mangroves more out into the lagoon. Also, if you go more towards the landward side, you cannot find mangroves. So that is the only area that you can find mangroves. So in that case, it's obvious that due to the salinity gradient, you can find different species, normally establishing from lagoon to landward side. So therefore, due to the species distribution, as well as due to the stem density. Stem density means that how many plants you can find per area. That is called density, right? So therefore, how many stems are there per area, I mean given area, as well as the species composition. So what we did was, we just investigated that how these carbon stocks are varying from lagoon side to landward side, taking species composition and stem density into account. So these are the two factors we studied, and obviously there was a very clear and significant variation from landward side to the seaward side, and it is because of the species composition and different stem densities. So this is the story basically. That is the reason why we are always telling that we should conserve mangroves, because we are having very less number of species, and we just want to conserve them in that ecosystem. That's the reason, because they are very good at, the storing carbon, although they are having different capacities, right? Yeah.
So thank you, sir.
I
So a
think,
little bit of
yeah.
clarification.
Yeah.
So can you just explain what are the mangrove species that have higher capacity to store carbon when it comes to Sri Lankan context?
Normally, yeah. Yes, I think normally the well-known species are Rhizophora species. Rhizophora means in Sinhala we call it that Mahakadol. Probably people might know that by that name. Mahakadol, Rhizophora species. They are they are having a high capacity in sequestrating carbon. And at the same time, Avicennia species. Avicennia species are also very good. And these are the topmost species that who can do a lot of carbon sequestration. So other than that, Exocaria species, Lugnitsera species, and these are the other few species who can do the same, but not at that capacity, something very lower than that, but still it is significant. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. So let's move to the next question. So on a daily basis, communities interact with mangrove ecosystems, and also evidently mangrove ecosystem provide a lot of ecosystem services as well. And I have seen that you have conducted research on how firewood mangroves can be used as a firewood in a sustainable manner. My question is, what are the different levels of human intervention you have observed in mangrove vegetation? And adding to that, how do these interventions affect the overall health and sustainability of mangrove ecosystems? Right, I need an answer focused on climate change.
Yeah, Rasara, the thing is that now I think it's very clear why we should conserve mangrove forest. The reason is that mangroves are having a very high capacity as compared to even to Singaraja forest. They cannot do, the Singaraja forest cannot do this functionality in the same way that, in a way that mangroves are doing. So therefore, that's why we just want to conserve mangroves. And there are a lot of policies and set of rules and regulations are there. But unfortunately, we have identified several human interventions in recent decades The first thing is that people normally now get familiarized with some of the species which can be used for their house constructions. Sometimes that people now get used to extract some of the wood from forest, and they are just using these poles for fencing and for some other board preparations and building up and all these things. That is the major problem that we are having, because the authorities cannot scrutinize this almost all the single event that normally going inside a forest. But that is the main thing. The people normally use mangoes plenty than we expected. At the same time, you can find some of the hotel constructions. Now, hotel constructions have become very big, very serious threat and become a menace to these ecosystems. I don't know why. The reason is that normally, according to the Coastal Conservation Act, no one can build hotel or any kind of constructions within 300 meters. That is normally authority vested by the act. But despite that fact, now I could observe that so many hotel constructions now going on inside and very near to mangrove ecosystem. So that is the second reason. The third reason is that the pollution. The pollution means that if you go to Nigambo and the most western part of the country, you can find the pollution is the main problem, and also shrimp farms. And I think probably you are well aware of shrimp farming. The reason is that shrimp farms are established cutting down mangroves. Normally, the areas that is occupied by mangroves are being used to build shrimp farm. Therefore, shrimp farms, pollution, and the people normally used to get some of the advantages from and the hotel construction. So these are the topmost interventions that we have observed so far. Yeah.
So you have previously mentioned that the mangrove reforestation is obviously more effective than deforestation. Like mangrove restoration is more effective than reforestation attempts. So nowadays, like many organizations, community groups, and individuals are conducting mangrove restoration programs. Now, I have seen that it has even become a trend. But still, the success of this mangrove restoration program is questionable. So you have successfully conducted some mangrove restoration projects. So can I know your inputs on how does the mangrove restoration process work, and what are the challenges and successes you have encountered?
Yes, Rasara, the first most thing what I want to tell you is that the most of the people, they think that the mangrove restoration should be done in the first place. Once you observe any kind of a degradation, if you see that there are some areas which are not occupied by mangroves, in the first place, people think that we should go for restoration. Scientifically, that is wrong, right? Scientifically, that is wrong. The restoration is recommended if you try with some of the other methods. Like the first thing is that we should let the ecosystems to get recovered by itself first. There can be some ecological barriers. Ecological barriers means there can be some hydrology is not suitable. The hydrology is not appropriate or not facilitating propagules mean the small seeds which comes and normally establish in the system. This regeneration capacity is not up to the standard level or the expected level. The first thing what we can do is that we can facilitate natural recruitment there. That should be the first thing you should do. Then we should first try to identify what are the barriers that basically barricade some of the natural recruitments. Then we can remove these barriers and we can just keep eye on the system, whether it is getting self-renewed. If that does not happen, then we should go for the second step. Then what we should do is that we should come up with some of the rehabilitation programs. The rehabilitation means that we are not going for planting, but we just collect some of the seedlings and the seeds from the same forest. And we just normally disperse those things in different places where we need to have some plantations. That is called rehabilitation. So we are not going for plantation still. So even that, let's suppose that that particular attempt is also failed. So under that conditions, then we can recommend to go for restoration. So the restoration or replantation should be the final step, and the final step to be executed. But what people are doing is that they are always doing other way around. They always start up with restoration. That is completely wrong. The thing is that the other thing is that the question that you asked, that now we are having a certain kind of a trend of having some of mangrove restoration, but still we cannot or we could not reach to the point we are expecting. The reason is that people who are engaging in restoration programs, they do not follow any scientific guideline. That is the reason. Because there are certain guidelines to be followed if you want to do or make some mangrove restoration programs, right? But I have seen enough, and I have heard enough, and I experienced enough that people, they don't have or they do not follow any guideline. But this, what they do is that normally they are asked to do some plantations. They go and just collect some of the propagules and seeds. They go to a place where mangroves are not present. Then they start to, that push some of these propagules in that place, and they are coming back, taking some photographs, and they are just sending that to some of the donors and telling that we have done a great plantations. But there's no post care at least no one is going there afterwards. So that is why we don't have that kind of success in Sri Lanka. That is not all about the ecology or something like that. The way that we are doing is completely wrong. That's why we always recommend, if you wish to do some restoration or plantation, the first thing you should do is that you should identify what are the most suitable places to be planted. Then you should get the consultancy from the relevant stakeholders who are really engaged actively in such projects, and you should get that scientific knowledge and should collaborate with these people, and then should go for restoration. So that's why now we are having high failure rate in Sri Lanka. So in my point of view, yeah.
What are the key messages and recommendations would you like to share with our listeners regarding the importance of mangroves and challenges they face in the context of climate change?
Yeah, the first thing what I want to tell is that actually we should stop mangrove destruction first, because we all know that prevention is better than cure. So therefore, before going for restoration, the first thing should be we should protect what we have. Actually, logically, that should be the first thing to be done. Then later on, we should really give some awareness for the people what is the real importance of mangroves. Because normally they think that mangroves are the places where the fish catch is really high. That is how fishermen think. It's okay, it's good. Then we should promote that one for the fishermen. And for the other people, we should really give some of the awareness program. This is the importance of this ecosystem. That if you do not have this kind of ecosystem, these are the most possible consequences that we will get in future. That if we can give that, at least that sense, then we can just, because I think Sri Lanka now has already signed the Paris Declaration. And in Paris Declaration, there is one scenario, because I think you might have heard about that one, because I'm pretty sure. Red and Red Plus programs. Under Red and Red Plus programs is one of the key recommendations is always this restoration program, conservation programs, all the things should be linked with community. It should be community-based projects. Then only those projects will be sustainable. Then I think, the government should also get this point into account, and we should launch and get some necessary actions to get the involvement of community. Then only we can have a very sustainable thing. That is the second thing. Third one is that we should respect the policies and regulations. I think if we can just do all these things together, I guess that it is not that hard to protect mangroves. And with a very good pride, I would like to mention that Sri Lanka is the only country in the world who has claimed all mangroves to be protected. If you cut down a one mangrove, definitely you will be prosecuted and you will be punished badly. That is the only country in the world who claimed all mangroves should be protected. Yeah. So with that context, I think that the legal system is more than strong. I mean, more strong. So therefore, I think we can do really good conservation and we can just get the benefit of mangroves, especially towards climate change mitigation.
Thank you very much, sir, for sharing your
Yeah.
thoughts.
Yeah.
So, before winding up the session, do you have anything to add to our audience?
Yeah, actually, that I have a presentation. Probably you can share with your colleagues. Then actually, that is I have given a lot of information about blue carbon ecosystems, and why we are just keen on these things and all. Then might be useful for them. So therefore, please share this one. Yeah, actually, this is what I mentioned about blue carbon. Actually, that people can search on this term, and blue carbon, I basically said that carbon that is stored in mangroves. But apart from that, seagrass meadows and salt marshes are also normally put under this category. Then, in broad sense, mangroves, tidal marshes, and seagrass meadows, they are really storing carbon, and we call them as blue carbon, right? Then this is the different statistics that we are having in Sri Lanka in the world. Mangroves are normally having 15.5 million hectares. Then you can even think that how important this system is, right, at global level. And tidal marshes also 40 million hectares. And seagrass meadows also not actually it has not been estimated correctly, but 60 million hectares I mean have been discovered now up now this point. Then I have given some of the global carbon estimation for these different ecosystems. Now you can find the specialty of mangroves. Just go and check with the figures I have given here. If you take the global carbon estimation, now it can go up to 1,484 mega carbon per hectare for mangroves. While tidal marshes and seagrass meadows, they are normally below to that level, but normally they are also very good in sequestrating carbon. And this is really important. And now you can see the boreal forest and tropical forest. I think this gives a very good comparison. Now see that boreal forest and tropical forest, they are normally storing less than 300 megacarbon. Now see, go and see what is the condition in mangroves. Mangroves, they can go up to 1,500. So this is the specialty. This is why we are emphasizing the importance of mangroves. Even we are having less amount of mangroves, we can get a lot of benefits out of it as compared to some of the tropical forest. And I have given some of the figures and data we have collected so far about the total organic carbon. Then if someone wants to get more and more detail about carbon and climate change mitigation and that kind of stuff, you can get more statistics through these slides. I have given all the things. And this is how we are going to estimate carbon in mangrove ecosystems. And this is really important to see that now. See that estimate suggested that approximately this amount of megagram of carbon dioxide was released to the atmosphere during 2000 to 2012. During this 12 years period, now it has been estimated that this kind of huge amount of carbon dioxide was released to the atmosphere due to the deforestation of mangroves. Now you can think that what is the disaster that we have done already with the destruction of mangroves. And this is I have given if you want to study carbon in mangrove ecosystem, what kind of instruments that you can use and how it should be used, and all these details are given on these slides. Then people can really go and see, they follow. If someone likes to do that one, you can just go and see what are the different methodologies. And these are the things I just want to show you. I think as Rasara mentioned that we have already conducted some of the experiments on western coast, southern coast, and eastern coast to get a very holistic view about carbon sequestration and their distribution. And I guess that is a very good representation, that covering most of the areas in Sri Lanka. And this is how we really done some of the research, and you can find different instrument and the things that we are using to get different, soil samples at different levels. Sometimes we went down to 3 meter soil course. Actually, that is really, really hard, but still we are having a great interest in having this kind of things, yes. And yeah, and this is also, Rafara, probably for undergraduate students and postgraduate students. I think this is a very good message for them. Now I have already started to work on a new model. We call it as Misopon Forest model. Actually, we received a grant very recently from Germany. And this is a very good software that can be used to identify the future of forest. And this is very specific to mangroves. I think we are the first group to use this model for mangroves in Sri Lanka. Then actually, in terms of climate change and all that, we can just get a very good idea about future of the forest, and carbon sequestration and all these things can be really retrieved using this model. Might be useful for you. So, and this is about SN and Delphi technique. I'm just mentioning about different techniques, because if you need more details, you can just contact me directly, or you can just search on Google. SN and Delphi technique is normally being used to identify the different stakeholders about the mangrove management, because in Sri Lanka, mangrove management is not satisfactory, really. So then through this SN and Delphi technique, we can see who is playing the major role in mangrove conservation and management, right? Different authorities are there, different NGOs, different, that activists, environmentalists are there who are taking care of mangroves, and we can really see through this one who are the people just taking care of mangroves. And this is how we done for different areas who are playing major role, and these information are there. So I think these are the things I just want to really share with you. And one last thing, now we are in the process, especially I'm working with the environmental ministry in introducing carbon trading. Now carbon trading has become one of the top and very hot topic in Sri Lanka and in the world as well. But we don't have any kind of system through which we can just convert carbon into carbon credits. Now we are in the process of introducing this carbon trading and carbon credit system in Sri Lanka, through which Sri Lanka can benefit a lot in different ways and earn a lot of money from other countries. So I think these are the things I just want to share with you all, Rasara.
So thank you very much for joining today with us, sir. So we are really honored to have you with us.
Yeah, let me tell one thing that I really happy to see that you are working on climate change, because you and me also work in our department for a lot of, that for the last 2-3 years. And I really happy to see that you are working on that as well. And also should thank the British Council and the Global Youth Biodiversity Network, and who are really organizing this kind of very worthwhile thing to give and share knowledge and giving knowledge for the other people who are willing to do something. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So this marks the end of 4th episode of Climate Voyage podcast series. So let us meet in a new episode. Until then, take care. Bye.
Thank you very much.